This video is probably going to be like 50% pedal demo, 50% history lesson. I'm just letting you know right up front. First guitar, that's a new to me parts caster, right into the pedal with all the knobs pretty much straight up the middle. Then I boosted things a little bit for the lead parts. And so the bass players don't feel left out, I ran that through here as well, but I set it over to the clean side of things. This video has been a long time in the making. I actually got this back in November, and I started working on some stuff, but it wasn't feeling inspired or fun, so I put it aside, got distracted by some other stuff, came back to it last week, was feeling really good, and then I came down with COVID. And I was knocked out for a couple days, but I'm feeling good, I'm back in action, and I've got some stuff that I really can't wait to show you. Let's get started with the basics. We got 4 knobs here: volume, bass, treble, gain, and as you'll see, the gain knob, even set halfway, comes in pretty strong. Alright, so that's the left side of the gain knob. What happens over on the right side of the knob? Really gnarly, really touch sensitive, all the stuff you want to hear from a pedal like this. And even with the gain all the way down, I'm talking all the way down, the pedal's still gonna do its thing. I keep trying to think of ways to describe this sound, and I keep coming back to distressed. You can play clean-ish and then dig in for a little extra bit of saturation kick, and I don't know, from a songwriting perspective, it kind of reminds me of a voice that's seen some stuff. This can be used as a straight-ahead distortion pedal or as a preamp where you want the characteristics of the Silvertone 1484 to really shine through. But like we showed, no matter what you do, it's always going to have that kind of sound to it. As for the EQ, nothing too fancy here. It's a Baxandall style bass and treble setup, but when you're really leaning into the bass notes, it can be super easy for those to fuzz up the whole sound, so a little signal shaping comes in handy there. I have to admit, I was not at all familiar with the 1484. I think a friend of mine's dad had a Silvertone something or other, and we largely ignored it because we had PVs and metal zones. But I did some digging, so that's the whole second half of the video here. You see, long before department stores were the part of the mall that you walk through to get to the real part of the mall, they were these massive shopping experiences, and this all dates back to even the late 1800s. The idea of everything you could possibly want in one place, sectioned off into departments, was equal parts consumerism and entertainment. They were the Amazon of their time, and like Amazon, sometimes the owners of those stores would see a bunch of money being made in one particular area and think, hey, maybe I should get in on that. How hard could it possibly be? We're familiar with the idea of private label brands, sometimes called store brands. Oh, you want some NyQuil? Guess what? We've got NyQuil at home. Sears, over the years, had a bunch of private label brands like Craftsman, Kenmore Appliances, Die Hard Vehicle Batteries. Anyone else ever rock a pair of Toughskins corduroys? Some of these brands were acquisitions. In 1916, Sears bought the Harmony Company, makers of fine banjos, mandolins, and guitars. The very same year, they created Silvertone, a brand which they would use for home entertainment electronics, radios, phonographs, vacuum tubes, and electric guitars and amplifiers. So now you've got Harmony making Harmony stuff, and Silvertone selling stuff made by Harmony, but also stuff made by Kay, Teisco, Valco, and Dan Electro, all with the Silvertone logo on them. So when Junior comes around asking for a guitar for Christmas, Mom and Dad can say, yeah, you know what? I saw a Silvertone guitar in the store the other day, and it's the same brand as the phonograph in Father's study. That's a name we can trust. It even has all those fancy knobs and switches all over it, just like the Silvertone AM radio that I've been looking at lately. The Silvertone 1484 was made by Dan Electro. Yes, that Dan Electro, right out of Neptune, New Jersey. Also the home of Kramer Guitars, so must be something really good in the water down there at Exit 98. It was 35 watts through two 12-inch Jensen speakers, 2 independent channels, 6 preamp tubes, 2 6L6 GC power amp tubes, what looks like a seriously massive transformer, built-in reverb, and tremolo, all for $150. Now, I've read some posts romanticizing the idea of a cheap store-brand guitar going on to be coveted by indie musicians. Just for the record, $150 in 1963 adjusted for inflation to 2024 is a little over $1,500. Even if we go back a few years to the pre-COVID era, it's still about $1,300. So that's Fender 65 Deluxe Reverb money. And if you're a millennial and you really want to get angry, this is also in the 1916 Sears catalog. I mean, some assembly required and everything, but That just makes me want to play Red Dead Redemption 2 all over again. Now, I have no doubt that for a number of years, many of these amplifiers were rescued from basements and garage sales and pawn shops for probably next to nothing. They looked and sounded absolutely nothing like the modern direction that music gear was headed. Remember, there's a calm before the storm, and there's a period before vintage when stuff is just old. The most interesting thing about the 1484, I think, is what it's not. It's not just a clone of a Fender, which is what a lot of people were doing at the time. And looking at the schematic in the service manual, it's a very simple design, but it's unique, at least for a guitar amp. And this pedal's big selling point is that it's the exact same circuit as the amp. They even say that you won't be able to tell the difference side by side. Look, it's a simple circuit to begin with, and we're not powering any speakers from it, so let's cut out the power amp section. There's no reverb or tremolo, so we can leave this part out. It's just the one channel, so ignore all this. And there's no actual tubes in here, so we've just got a bunch of JFET transistors, although in order to make them more dynamic and touch sensitive, there's a voltage doubler, so they're running at 18 volts. And that's great, it's what it should be. We've looked at a number of JFET-based dirt pedals on here before. We just looked at the Jupiter Jive. That was a tremendously fun pedal with a very simple circuit. I guess I just wasn't expecting to see a circuit board quite this sparse. And I get it, believe me, this is the circuit. That's the whole point of the pedal, and SMT is what everyone's doing. It makes no difference to the actual sound of the pedal, and that's why the pedal is $250 and not $400. It's just, man, that's a whole lot of blank green right there. And I know someone's going to jump in the comments and say, oh, it doesn't matter what anything looks like, you shouldn't even be looking in there to begin with, just shut up and play your guitar, that's all that matters. Okay, so should I just completely ignore how absolutely gorgeous this looks on the outside? Because they obviously spent a lot of effort to make it look this good. They custom made these knobs to match the style of the amplifier, but in the dimensions of the pedal. This shiny part up here, yeah, it's kind of a pain to keep clean for video purposes, but the way it contrasts with this lower part and the way this styling up here shows up with the Jackson Audio logo and Silvertone, that is just pure class right there. And the Fender style jewel light, and it's got these folded metal edges like all the other Jackson Audio pedals. That takes effort right there, and I'm a sucker for stuff like this, which is why I'm a stickler for stuff like this. Maybe it's the COVID, maybe winter is getting to me, maybe you feel the same way. Either way, I'm glad I took my time with this pedal. I think I found some really good tones with it. If you like this and you want to see more stuff like it, please make sure you're subscribed to my channel. I've got something else with some really cool knobs planned for the next one. So keep it here, I'll catch you on the next one.